chat because we're underway. Would you look at that? A wonderful view of the German clubhouse where both of these teams are going to spar today. And our very first match, which is only a single map, gets underway between Disrupt Gaming and Spacestation here on Clubhouse. Disrupt will have the what is often considered favorable side, with them starting on defense. Operator bans will come out. Hibana, the very first ban. Not unusual to see her, but also not exactly a common ban here. Joining her is Maverick. This is already going to be a more interesting clubhouse than many of the previous clubhouses we've watched.
So far through the North American League 2021 Stage 1, we have seen a solid amount of Clubhouse 2 times it has been played, and it is still a defender-sided map with a 58% overall win rate for the defense. So that holds true from the past of this map. In terms of the bans, nothing too crazy going on here. You got to get rid of Hibana because of the drop downs. Getting rid of Maverick instead of a Thatcher is good because you can bandit trick now. So Maverick completely nullifies the idea of countering a wall, whether it be bandit trick, mute juggling, even though nobody does that. Kaid Electroclaws doesn't matter. But Thatcher does not. Thatcher can help you get through a wall, but you can counter that. It is an option now. So there's some choices for the defense. The other two defensive bans are pretty standard. I think they don't need to be too well fleshed out.
It's very common to see Maestro bans against Space Station as well, all because of one gentleman. His name is Fultz. He happens to be a very proficient Maestro player, and not only is Maestro a particular menace when it comes to this map, but he is also extremely powerful in the hands of Fultz. Not, of course, to be discredited as J9O on that Maestro as well. He was able to pull off incredible performances up against the Sonics last week on that exact same operator. When a team bans an op, they do so knowing that they will be affected by it, but the hope is that the impact will be felt far more on their opponents than on themselves. So keep in mind, with DG banning both Hibana and Maestro, they are well aware that they are going to be playing without them. This was likely a premeditated and discussed decision ahead of time, and they know that they can deal without it. The handicap is going to be thrown onto Space Station. Ditto how SSG is going to be hoping to knock DG off with a Wamai ban on defense, and then, of course, the Mav ban on attack. The very first bomb site that we're going to see downstairs. Clubhouse has 3 viable bomb sites, even though Gym and Master upstairs is often known as the least defendable of the 3. Regardless, Church and Arsenal down below, always a good place to start. And SSG's already made their way into the building within the first 20 seconds.
This is good early control here from Space Station. And it seems like it's a hard anchor defense of the bottom floor. They're not going to roll out the roam strat. You've got 2 choices, both of them very different from each other. When you defend the bottom floor, you can either roam heavily and try to delay, or you could just anchor up and have everyone down in the basement. There's no, you could kind of run in between there, maybe have a roamer or 2, but they're likely to just get picked off, so almost no team does that. So far, SSG just establishing their dominance on the top 2 floors. They're going to start working vertical and trying to open up a lot of these drop downs, maybe some floor over the kitchen, and they'll figure out where they want to execute later in the round once they see what's weakest on Disrupt's defense.
Claymore's setup will prevent a rotate through garage, providing anybody has an impact to get rid of it, and that'll be likely Mark if anybody's going to go that route, but he's nowhere near. In fact, his 2 impact grenades will likely be done to destroy any hard destruction that gets put on that kitchen hatch, and that's where you see Mark is looking for now. A good team, especially with a sledge or a buck on the board, can tear through that kitchen floor, which is the ceiling above Mark, very quickly, and it'll put him in a tough spot. But for now, he's got backup with Shuttle nearby, a Nitro Cell in hand, and any soft destruction that will come from the hands of that sledge. And Rampy could be taken out, and there you go. The very first pick is Rampy. He opens up a small portion of that floor, and he's gone.
Did he just...
He shot the drone and picked up the C4. It was
okay.
He just fumbled it. That's all.
Okay. Down goes... Oh, nothing, actually, as Fultz's Ash Charge is caught by an ADS. There is no Wamai, so you know there can only be 3 possible denials of those Ash Charges until they recharge, of course. That's why you get that Wamai ban, just to get rid of the extra layers. The shield persisting in the main hallway is going to help in control for Disrupt, and considering they've got the first pick They've got good control, and the kitchen drop is only being opened up with 30 seconds left. This is certainly looking like a disrupt round, especially when you factor in the denial from those 3 gas canisters in J9O's pocket.
And they've managed to part the seas around that drop, but nobody's really got another angle outside of the 3 members of Space Station who are all huddled up inside of Kitchen. Iconic in a powerful spot. He needs to be shaken from this area, but there's a smoke that'll go down from the defense to try and stop them. A smoke gets dropped from SSG, and they'll all drop in right now. Space Station explodes into the bomb site. Fultz will be the one to take point, but he's in the middle of the smoke. Mass confusion as everybody's firing away. Diffuser needs to go down as the time has now run out, and if somebody could stop them, it'll be J9O. SSG has no chance of holding on and disrupt, with Jack again saving the round for his team. Gives disrupt round number 1.
J9O, basement clubhouse, SAS shotgun, name a better combo. He has been clutching up with that shotgun downstairs for so long, it feels like it's just expected at this point. Well played to J9O, but of course just disrupt in general. As we all saw, I think it's pretty obvious that execution from Space Station was not what they wanted. They were forced into that execute. It was completely off the reservation, not the plan that SSG wanted to execute. Oh yeah, we're gonna smoke and then everyone just push into deep arsenal. No sir, that's not likely to work, and it didn't. A nice attempt though, considering the circumstances that SSG left themselves in. They put up a pretty decent effort of trying to clutch that up. It just wasn't enough in the end. Better play by Disrupt in general. One thing I want to highlight in particular was that position Iconic was playing by Box 2 in the basement of Arsenal. That setup in B2 or by B2 is different, and it's only achievable because they raised B2 to cut off the site in the middle. Having a power position like that, I really appreciate the speed at which Disrupt is starting to learn this slightly altered basement.
Of course, for those of you that might not know, B2 is a set of boxes that are in the basement. Now, there's one over by the position that's known as dummies. There's another that's over by the actual bomb site, and then all the other guns that are in the back of Arsenal. And of course, that sight line is huge because you can't play as aggressively as an attacking team when you drop onto that position where Iconic is. How are you going to shake him off? He's sitting in front of a deployable shield. And yes, it's a Goyo shield. It can blow up and force him back because of the area denial that comes from the Goyo shields getting blown up. But there was very limited utility from SSG to do that. Their Ash charges had gone elsewhere. Rampy was dead, and a grenade is not likely going to be reaching that part of the map, especially if a sledge is going to be focused on that kitchen drop. So it was a tough position for SSG to be in. Additionally, it does give you a little bit more cover as an attacker because if you drop, the defense can't watch it as aggressively. So it really depends on how it gets played out. For SSG, they tried a suicide drop through that kitchen hatch. Very few teams end up pulling that off successfully unless you've got a Zofia, unless you've got grenades, unless you've got a Kappa Tower, something to flush it out. In that case, SSG didn't really have all too much.
So the bandit tricking has been forced out in this round. It cost Thinking Aid 2 of his EMPs, and Shuttle lost a little bit of HP, but a decent chunk of time was wasted, so that's better than nothing for Disrupt. And for many people, it's better than banning Thatcher and having Mav up, because at this level, Maverick players are really efficient with their blowtorch. They are going to get that thing open. It's not going to take them too much time, and sometimes the bandit tricking can waste more. So what is unfortunate rather for Disrupt in this round is that Shuttle has peaked something, I don't know what, and he's managed to lose a good chunk of his HP. That's not going to bode well in the long run.
Rampy lost some too, so neither team really in a better spot here, but the work being done, of course, to open up that wall as you denoted, and of course, you fall off. It's very challenging to try and outsmart a Zofia, and when Flores gets in, defending that spot is going to be even more challenging. Now, yeah. DG, they like their roam game. They're playing quite heavily down below. The problem is that J9O and Shuttle, side by side, well, they might end up running into one of the members of SSG just outside of blue. We also got to see Iconic running downstairs, who will now be heading over towards blue as well. So 3 members of GG sequestered down at this lounge, waiting very patiently, and you have to expect them to be fighting for a post plan. Very first kill is going to be Fultz taking out Iconic, so that Goyo he's not going to be able to accomplish all too much. And this will free up SSG to also begin to push that breach with a little bit less trepidation. Great shot from Fultz onto Mark, picking up his second kill. A stun very close to the door, but he can't outduel J90, who's just feeling one right now, picking up his fourth kill. He'll need to do even more work watching the window by the B bomb, but he can't outduel Bosco, who now charges into the bomb site. Diffuser going down from Luke. The case is only a second away, and SSG seems to have locked out most of the bomb site. DG's retake, not happening at all. Fultz, Bosco, they clean up, and SSG equalizes on round number 2.
Big round there from Fultz. Impactful kills downstairs, and then he rotates up on the platform, able to do even more work, not just to getting those frags, especially the player on Raptors, which opens up the rotate from construction, but also just in keeping a presence on platform alive. And the rotate from Bosco was perfectly timed as well. He filled the void after Fultz died. There was not enough of a window opportunity after Fultz died for Disrupt to regain control of their bomb site. And on top of that, they already had such a significant man advantage. It just was unlikely they were going to be able to cascade that into an advantage. So Cash doesn't work out for Disrupt. And interestingly, they're going to switch it up to Jim immediately.
Interestingly enough, there was a couple things I think that went wrong for DG. Number one, when they had 3 players downstairs, SSG seemed to know that with how quickly they took control of construction. Construction was left soft, which is a bit of a rarity for the way that certain teams like to play that. Obviously, the reinforcements from Disrupt going elsewhere, but what it allowed SSG to do was post up Rampy in that spot and concentrate on the back of Cash. With 3 players from DG down below, you had a very tenuous hold on the bomb site, and it puts a lot of stock in the defenders to use their nitro cells, use impact grenades, or simply rely on calls being made to shoot through the floor. DG got picked apart on the bottom floor, tried to pivot back to the top floor, and they got shut out as well. So DG will play this carousel of bomb sites. I mentioned it in round number 1. Gym Master is a viable bomb site. Plenty of teams like to go here. It is often noted the tertiary bomb site. It's always picked third after Cache CCTV, and Church Arsenal either do or don't work out, depending on whether you have some faith in your other bomb sites. Regardless, this tends to be a pretty decent bomb site for DG, so I'm excited to see how SSG tackles this challenge.
Once again, with the bandit tricking Shuttle, gonna be doing his best, but there's the Zofia lifeline to deny it, the EMP to get the initial off, lifeline to deny the tricking in general. It stops you in the middle of placing that bandit when the lifeline hits you, so it just cancels out the animation. Instead, Shuttle will move into the bathroom and start tricking in there. He's going slow at it. He's expecting Ace Selmas to come out here and to try and open up the wall. That's why he's placing and picking up. He's not finishing it if he doesn't hear the Selma on the wall, so he's just trying to be careful.
Yeah, it'll give his position away. And while I'm sure SSG is aware that with the bandit on the board, this is the expected response, there's no guarantee unless they've droned it out. You take a look at DG's lineup, they don't really have anything to stop a drone from getting in there. There's no mute on the board, there's no Mozzie on the board. So for SSG, they could easily have this information. They don't just yet, so smart play from Shuttle. As for the rest of DG, they seem to be concerned with logistics, often referred to as Logi by most people, and they might even be holding cash, but we haven't seen that quite yet. As for SSG, their take is down below. They've already spotted 1 Valk cam, and that's a little bit less information for Disrupt. It's also 1 less body now, as J90, who's been instrumental in those first 2 rounds, taken out of action with just over a minute to go by Bosco.
That's a double kill, though, for Mark downstairs. He kills both Rampy and Fultz. Those were the players underneath who were trying to work vertical, the cover and the actual pressure that was being applied by Fultz. Really big play from Mark. Hope we get to see that in a replay at some point, because that is going to be super instrumental to the outcome of this round. Here goes the wall, though. The bandit tricking not working out for Shuttle. And that's going to be the bathroom opened up. So despite the man disadvantage now for SSG, they have good control by the jacuzzi balcony. One of the biggest problems, though, is the vertical pressure not being applied. And there's nobody on the balcony currently. They'll need to rotate someone over to those windows to apply that pressure.
Shuttle watching over the hole that was opened up, but he's going to get flashed. And at that proximity, you cannot look away. It is going to burn your retinas and allow Bosco to sweep on in and take Shuttle out of the fight. He now has control inside a bathroom. Both his smokes will go, and he tussles with yet again another member of DG. 3 kills, all of them on his shoulders. Nearly a 4th, though, as Retro is able to dance around it. Iconic takes out Luke, and now Bosco down. It's a 1v2 with Thinking Nate having 10 seconds. He's got Iconic lined up, but Iconic gets the shots first, and DG takes another round. They took the first, they took the third, and it looks like the gamble on Gym Master pays off.
Iconic certainly letting them know. Big 3-piece there to save the round. But it's mostly thanks to Mark that they were even in that position in the first place. The double kill downstairs for Mark is instrumental in the outcome. It mostly comes down to alleviating the pressure that the Anchors were bound to start feeling from the lifeline and the nades of the Zofia and the sledge underneath. I'm really surprised he was able to pick that up. And again, I really want to review the replay at some point to see exactly how that happened. It must have been a big bit of negligence on the side of probably Rampy, who was, I think, on the cover in that position. Either way, Disrupt looking pretty good on this first half so far. They are confidently taking these rounds. That last one was well executed by SSG, but Disrupt always managed to find a way to dig themselves out of a bad situation.
This was talked about a lot in that Nerd Street Gamers matchup, and we're going to see it here as well. And it's that DG isn't really committing that many mistakes. It's an impressive mark of a good team so far. And, you know, if DG are capable of keeping things tight and not overextending and not making hero plays and playing off of each other, then things are going to go quite well. Now, the good news for Disrupt is that they've got players that if they need to make hero plays, they can damn well do that. It's not a problem. But the restrained playstyle of Disrupt is nice to see, and it's been working out. And even though they lost to the Sonics, they still kept very competitive with a new team that can be quite aggressive. They obviously powered their way through the DZ NSG Pro-Am, and now, well, I mean, they're on defense on Clubhouse, so we're not going to get too ahead of ourselves, but already it's been a promising start for Disrupt. Through that first 3 rounds, the 3 main bomb sites here on Clubhouse have been played, so the cycle will begin again with DG going back downstairs to Church and Arsenal.
Yeah, and in stark contrast to the lack of mistakes being made by Disrupt, in that last round we saw 2 major mistakes. Number 1 is the cover from downstairs, and number 2 it's the cover in the main hall after executing on the jacuzzi balcony, where Iconic managed to pick up his 3K. So with SSG, typically they like learn from their mistakes and they improve over the course of a match. But the course of a match, in typical fashion for SSG, was, you know, a best of 3. Now it's a best of 1. You've got a lot less time to identify your mistakes and start fixing them. And I'm worried for Spacestation that might become an issue in the short term, which is now much more important in the long term, is if that makes sense. A little bit confusing, but essentially, Spacestation doesn't have as much time to adjust. And I know they're good at doing it, but they need to stop dropping rounds really soon here, or there's going to be a problem.
And the one thing as well that should be noted is that while obviously losing Canadian means that their calling and their IGLing is going to be a little bit weaker, if not quite weak, in comparison to where he was, as he was widely considered to be one of the best IGLs to ever play the game, SSG stalled out on Clubhouse takes before. This is not necessarily a problem solely because they've lost their IGL. This is not a problem simply because Lucas joined the roster. So if people are looking to point fingers, as I know some fans can be a little bit eager to assign blame, I think it's worth noting that, well, this literally could happen to any team, and it did happen when Canadian was still on the roster, so temper your expectations accordingly.
That was a great EMP there from Thinking Nade, which allowed the nade to sail down the hallway and destroy the shield that was controlling the hallway, and this Church take looks like it's going to work out very well indeed for SSG. They got plenty of time. They're likely to gain the man advantage with this giant open Church wall in due time. And they're in a great position. There it is, as I say it. Jane, I know, the smoke anchoring in Church will go down. Shuttle in Deep Arsenal takes a big hit from Fultz all the way in Moto. And he'll peek again, and this time it works out for Shuttle. But all of his teammates are dying. 2 SSG players on the floor, though, so this is essentially a 2v3. Make that a 2v2, as it's actually Rampy and Bosco, the only 2 attackers up. But now it's just Mark by Blue, and his position is known. Luckily for him, he's got 2 defenders up, and they're both on low HP. A single bullet for each, but it's Rampy's bullet to find its mark first. And SSG will take a nice attack onto the bottom floor.
Well, things maybe started to look a little grim for Spacestation right there, and Rampy was in a hard spot to hit with that mug. Everybody hates that damn mug in his way, but Rampy ends up winning the fight. And honestly, 50 seconds left. SSG still has utility. They've cleared out some of the nuisances that you saw inside a Church. They put some pressure on the back of the bomb site over by what's referred to as pulse spot by the Arsenal bomb site. And where do you go from there? You just pressure into Church. If you're able to cleave right through the bomb site, as we saw SSG do, opening it up, just pushing Mark into blue. So he was too focused on the one player from SSG who was pushing through oil pit. SSG has such control over that A-bomb site. And Shuttle, you know how high that fire rate is on the Vector. You know that it doesn't do the greatest amount of damage at that range, but he softens up two members of SSG and gets the down. If Mark wins a single duel, that's all it would have really taken, a single duel, that could have very easily been Disrupt's round with how close that was. So even though it was a loss, DG still hanging tough in these rounds. Once again, not giving many opportunities for teams to punish their mistakes, and DG is showing it here even when they're coming out with a loss in those rounds.
I imagine the comms in that round must have been really hectic for both teams, especially for Disrupt, considering how close they came. But I don't know if they know exactly how close they were to winning there, because it really was just 2 bullets, you know, one on each player at the end for Mark, and he would have clutched it up. And it's the sort of round where you go into a VOD review and you're, oh, darn. we were an inch away, if only. But it's definitely proof that Disrupt is still here to win the rounds, even when they're coming close. That was not a convincing round for Spacestation, and that's kind of crazy to me, considering how well SSG executed, because the actual strategy, the setup from Spacestation that last round was fantastic, even though they barely managed it in the end. And that's weird.
Seems like we got a similar setup here from DG. So obviously they liked what they saw last time and are hoping to replicate that. Now, 2 rounds in a row, losing J90 very first, not ideal. Not only is he a player who is capable of quarterbacking a very successful defense, but additionally, he's on a very pivotal operator. And you don't want to be losing your smoke early, just as you don't want to be losing an Echo early, just as you don't want to be losing a Maestro early. So if J90 is capable of staying alive, if that smoke plume from him can shroud a site and prevent teams from being able to push as aggressively, maybe slow them down so that DG can reposition, that obviously can be a difference maker right there alone for DG on overcoming the obstacles that SSG presents with their attacking strats.
Technically speaking, timing-wise, I don't think that second EMP is actually necessary, even if there was a Kaid in play. If there's no electricity on the thing at the start, and you're placing the EXO should be faster than the Kaid activating. So, I mean, I don't know if that, yeah, it's a little bit overkill there. Could use that somewhere else, but I guess it doesn't really matter. The Selmas, though, going on to the drop, they are being countered by the impacts. There is a C4 in play here for Shuttle. He wants to catch Luke with the exothermic charge, and that's now the necessary way for, or that's the only way SSG's going to get that drop open, is if they bring the thermite over. So if Shuttle's able to use that C4 to counter the thermite to kill Luke as he's opening the drop, that could be really a great pick for Disrupt. That's but assuming SSG lets it happen.
And that's a big difference right there alone. Most of those Selmas went onto the church wall because there wasn't anywhere near as much of a contest, but there's Shuttle to blow things wide open. A massive double with that C4 tossed on up. Down goes Rampy, down goes Bosco. These were your heroes of the previous round for Spacestation, and it's all for naught on this one. It also gives Disrupt a 5v3 to ride out for the remaining 30 seconds. So SSG, they'll scramble to reposition. They know that they don't have access to the drops, so where are they going to go? The diffuser basically stranded upstairs unless Luke is able to get his behind into the bomb site. Fultz just cruising right up the middle. He finds one kill, bursts on in. Church is his, thinking they to kill as well. Things have now evened up. SSG's chances looking mighty, mighty fine. But just like that, my feed has frozen.
Yeah, it looks like my feed's frozen as well. So this is not, I don't think that's on your end, Parker. It's not, it's definitely a problem with the overall feed. I'm not entirely sure what's happening, though. It's a 10 seconds left, 3 versus 3. Plant's not going down for Spacestation. Obviously, the round is already concluded. We're just not seeing what's happened. We'll get you the information as soon as we have it. It looks like the feed is refreshed, so Disrupt managed to take it in that very tense 3 versus 3. They did have the HP advantage. It was Retro, Mark, and Shuttle versus Thinking Nade, Luke, and Fultz. With 10 seconds left, and the plant wasn't going down for Spacestation. They tried to adjust for a church take, but they couldn't manage to get that plant down in church because they had so little control, because as you mentioned, Parker, they weren't able to get the church wall open. They used their hard destruction elsewhere.
That Nitro Cell, that mismanagement of utility from SSG. They don't have any other options for hard breach, by the way. Hibana and Maverick being banned means that hatch play is going to be a nightmare for the attacking team, because you're going to have to rely on either an exothermic charge, of which Thermite only has 2, and they are very easy to kill with a Nitro Cell or with an impact grenade, or you're going to need to use 2 of Ace's 3 Selmas. One of the major downsides to Ace's gadget is that they are terrible for hatches. They work much more effectively on any type of horizontal reinforcement rather than the vertical ones. So this was obviously a conscious decision from Disrupt by taking care of the Mav. Not that you're going to Mav open the kitchen hatch because you're going to get nitro celled or shot to death, but you can Mav out the other hatches. Stock is a relatively safe hatch to Mav, as is the bar hatch too. So, I mean, DG obviously knew this. They banned Hibana. SSG knew this, taking care of Mav. They wanted to try to play around the Thermite and the Ace, and it worked. It worked successfully in round number 4. Round 5, no. DG made some adjustments. They went all in on protecting Kitchen Hatch. They knew how crucial that was. It worked out in their favor. It put SSG in a spot where even if SSG wanted a course correction, they just simply didn't have the time or the gadgets for it.
Once again, Shuttle attempting to bandit trick. This is the final round of the first half, the last defense for Disrupt. Space Station setting up to deny the bandit tricking with a nade, and they'll be correct in their assumption that the EMP covers enough ground to get rid of those ADSs. Rampy beautifully placed and well coordinated with thinking nade. Shuttle tried to counter it with his own C4, but he was just a little bit behind. And that's going to be a great start to this round for Space Stations. Now they can open the wall for free. And they already have man advantage.
J9O down below with these impacts. He's going to watch over towards Stock and also patrol the main door. We know that SSG are going to want to go after Garage. And this was actually something that Pengu and Reaper spoke about on Twitter. I don't know if you saw, but talking about how teams are far more likely to engage on the Garage portion of this bomb site rather than go for a direct confrontation on the B bomb or even go through construction. And I mean, you can fight through that relatively easily. If there's no Kaid in play, Bandit's not necessarily going to be controlling those panels on Garage quite effectively. So now you can put some pressure on Mark on the catwalk. You can also put pressure on the B-bomb through the regular balcony since it's been opened up as well. And very quickly, DG have lost a lot of their footing here on this bomb site.
There's also the fact that Wamai is banned right now, which means that Capitao is a much more powerful pick. He's not being brought here by SSG, but he's definitely an option in dislodging players on Raptors. Mark is surviving right now, but he's got to be scared of the clear and the nade follow-up because he's only got, at most, 2 ADSs in that area, and it probably, I only see 1. So a single stun followed up by a nade is going to get the kill, or an EMP. In this case, an EMP that sounds like it may have missed or was intended for something else. The second nade, though, from Rampy misses its mark. And look at the time that is being wasted here by Mark. He is certainly slowing down this attack. And yeah, Garage is the take for Space Station, but they're not doing a great job of it right now.
No, and the EMP is still up. They waited too long. It's refreshed, and now SSG are going to flounder inside of Garage, and everything seems to be leaning in the direction of Disrupt taking yet another round, and with it, they would take the half. In the middle of the smoke, Luke is totally blinded, and Mark capitalizes off of that. He pays for it as Bosco sprints into the bomb site, but the diffuser might as well be on an entirely different map. So all you can do is fight for kills, and the Fultz-Bosco combo does it quite effectively. And like that, they grab victory from the jaws of defeat, and that first half, it goes 3-3 for both teams.
Luke is just as confused as the rest of us. That was certainly a throw and a half from Disrupt. Their control and their time, well established, all thanks to Mark being absolutely unkillable in Rafters. He spent the entire round in Rafters, and guess what? He wasted the entire round, save 10 seconds, in Rafters. Well played to Mark, truly. An excellent job, and what a letdown from the rest of his team to allow that to slip away in SSG's favor. If this does end up being an SSG map, which is looking fairly likely as the score is 3-3, that specific round will be cited as the reason why.
So, very first defense for Space Station downstairs, and look at the lineup from DG. Doesn't it look awfully familiar? The only real difference is that they're not going to have a sledge to deal with that soft destruction. However, Ash has seen a couple changes. She's now got 3 of those Ash charges, and she's also got 3 breaching charges as well. So yeah, you're a little bit more exposed when you're sitting down a breach charge than if you just simply had a sledgehammer, or Buck's skeleton key tends to rip up that floor fastest and best, but it's the best you can do in a pinch. If you're not anticipating controlling kitchen, then it's not really that bad when you look at DG's lineup. In fact, as long as they can get 1 or 2 hatches open and even just attack church dead on while controlling either blue or kitchen hatch and not even commit to a full drop, there's plenty that DG can do by taking control of church. It doesn't need to be an arsenal heavy execute. As for SSG, we refer to it as the SSG Roam, and it is back in vogue. There's no vigil on the board and there's no castle, but a mute and Mozzie are going to enable SSG to play wildly off-site. And as you can see from their operators and where they're positioned on this map, that is exactly what they intend to do.
Logi drop opened up. It's going to apply pressure to Thinking Nate, who's trying to play vertical over the kitchen. He'll just leave. SSG's roam is mainly about delaying the round, not necessarily getting a kill. So yeah, he spent a lot of time setting up that roam, but yeah, you don't want to lose anybody on it. Speaking of losing players, down goes Shuttle. That's your Thatcher eliminated, and if that call goes out to SSG, they might be prompted to simply fall back to the site. With the Thatcher gone, none of the main walls are going to get opened up. If there's a mute jammer in play there, then it's going to be a problem for Disrupt to play hard destruction. But they're going to still be clearing out, and SSG is going to keep on roaming.
Remember when I said that DG doesn't give up very many mistakes? Well, SSG so far has 5 of the 7 opening picks. Now, you would think that would have a better translation to the score above. It doesn't, though. Instead, DG's been able to hang tough. They are, with this round, though, running headfirst into a brick wall. Another member of DG will fall. This time it's Mark, who didn't exactly do his homework upstairs. Thinking Nate and Rampy are working together as best as they can. A great shot through the wall from Thinking Nate, and they're just hunting DG for sport at this point. Thinking Nate's still inside a CCTV. Oh. A beautiful shot on the retro. Oh my God. Leaving J90 now in a 1v5 with Thinking Nate snatching every single kill. He'll take 4 of them. SSG will take the flawless round, and they'll also take their first round on defense.
Wow. What a round for SSG. Upstairs, I especially love that Mozzie Pest play. The C4 on the Raptors wall and called out from one of his teammates on his drone, allowing that C4 kill through the wall. That's beautiful stuff. Good coordination for SSG. That was the most definitive round, obviously, we've seen through this map. And we were seeing some really good stuff from Disrupt in the first half, I gotta say. It's a great execution, some really tight, sorry, not executions, rather, some really tight defenses. But, yeah, it seems to have slipped away a little bit. Interestingly, Shuttle is going to 6-pick off of a Thatcher into a Yana. Did not see that coming. I'm curious to see what the application is going to be there. It works, though. It makes sense because there's actually not much wall denial being brought from SSG. They're bringing a mute, and that's it. A mute can be dealt with easily, so yeah, why bring a tool that's not necessary, I suppose?
Yana's an interesting operator because a lot of people speculated that we didn't see much of her in the previous meta because it was a utility soak meta. In fact, one of Yana's greatest strengths was that she could overcome the prevalence of Mozzie. Mozzie was everywhere alongside mute, and if you could take out those mute jammers, Yana would be a very strong operator because the pests didn't work with her, and she was essentially a free drone. And with how quickly her ability can recharge, you get an abundance of information for very little risk. And with a very aggressive entry fragger, you can find that Yana, alongside that player, can do a ton of damage to a team. She didn't really see a lot of play here. She does have frag grenades, which is really good. And given the fact that Maverick is banned, the only other operator that we really see that has access to frags is Sledge. DG doesn't like him. They don't necessarily need him at the moment. And when I say DG doesn't like him, I mean through these 2 rounds, we haven't seen him. And Sledge can have his uses on a cache CCTV take, but now that the downstairs bomb site has been won by SSG, I'm not entirely surprised to see DG decide to forego the Sledge, and we'll very likely see them forego a Sledge as well if SSG prevails here, or if they lose and we still see a Gym Master defense.
Mute Jammer destroyed by Mark off the information from his teammates, and the wall will open up nice and easy. Looks like it's going to be a garage take for Disrupt. Bosco on Raptors, and he's got good control into Lounge through this opened up wall. He's going to be trying to play all the different angles. He's got to be wary of those grenades from the Yana, which are much more effective because Wamai is banned. 2 ADSs will be perched up on Raptors, but Retro can clear those out with stuns. Uh-oh. You got to be aware of the angles, and Bosco is. Iconic certainly is not. SSG with the lead-off pick, and that just seems to be expected at this point.
And yet another, and Iconic is just playing with fire and has been this whole time. Luke has 0 kills, and Iconic only has 3. These were the 2 people we hyped up and asked you who was going to end up being the better of the 2. Well, right now, it seems to be a race to the bottom for both of these players. Their impact has not been felt on the score sheet. For Disrupt, that's okay because look at the depth. But at the same time, you can't be just giving away a free pick like that. SSG gets yet another opening pick, and it allows them to breathe a sigh of relief because that's a lot less destruction on the board for DG with Ash gone.
Look at the time being dwindled away as well. SSG is set up for every eventuality. They've got somebody in Oil Pit. They've got somebody by Tuck. Still Raptors control. SSG's just waiting. And what is Disrupt really doing? Well, sounds like we're hearing a smoke there from J90 on the platform. Meanwhile, by Raptors, Bosco is teasing his opponent at garage door. I believe that's Retro. And more of the waiting game is playing out. The Raptors wall might have been opened up now. Nope, it has not. And that's going to be 2 kills for Disrupt out of nowhere. 1 on Raptors, 1 elsewhere. Either way, man advantage now firmly in Disrupt's control, but they've only got 20 seconds to execute.
Retro's got that diffuser. He'll have a hard time getting into the B bomb site. He might actually be trapped here, as Thinking Nade can just watch the angle if he doesn't get flashed out. Retro's in, slowed temporarily. Down goes Thinking Nade, and same with almost everybody else from SSG. Nitro Cell does not connect, so Fultz will pivot. He gets 1, but he's basically boxed into cash. And Disrupt, after suffering that early death to Iconic, well, they managed to make a beautiful pivot, and with it, they find their very first round victory on attack.
Look at that. Interesting. That seems a lot like the round we saw from Disrupt in their last defense in the first half, where they had good control. They had the perfect setup, 10, 15 seconds left, and then suddenly a flurry of kills from the attack, and oh, wow, it's an attacking win. I mean, deja vu, Parker. That was a bit odd, and it shouldn't be happening like that. Spacestation let that one slip away.
Well, now we see Gym Bedroom pop up. This is the same thing that happened to DG when DG was on defense, and a Gym Master defense is next on the docket, and immediately you'll notice something a little bit different from Space Station's lineup. It's a very popular operator for this bomb site whose pick rate has been steadily increasing. It's Bosco on the Frost. Now, Frost isn't exactly known as a fragging operator. Let's get that out of the way right here, but it does allow her to play herself and the team around her to play her in a position where she's freed up once those frost mats are down. Additionally, with that secondary shotgun, she was so very kindly loaned the Italian shotgun as her sidearm. She can take the role of a smoke or a mute in a pinch, as you usually see one of those 2 operators for site construction. In this case, it will be Frost dealing with all of it. And because of the way that teams tend to try to take Gym Master, they're likely going to contest from the windows, and if you are able to kill enough time, the frost mats will kill your opponents, or you can kill them when your opponents hop in and prioritize either the frost mat or you.
Those frost mats are placed 1 on the Logi rotate between construction and Logi, and then 2 on the windows from the south balcony. Bandit tricking going on here from Luke on the single wall of construction, and down goes one of the exothermic charges, as well as Mark, who got peeked by Fultz. Not entirely sure where, but an early kill is an early kill, and that's your Zofia. Tons of utility just evaporated, as well as Mark, who has been a performer in this match so far. They're looking to get the refrag. They know where Rampy is downstairs thanks to a well-positioned drone, so this could be the advantage taken away from SSG if they're able to get this pick, but there's no guarantee of that, as it looks like Rampy's made it out safe.
Really crazy how DG is keeping it this close, yet consistently forfeiting the very first pick. It's not great long term, but I think it really does show that DG is a team that are coordinated enough to be able to get themselves out of the bad positions that they find themselves getting into. And believe you me, DG has found themselves in some pretty bad positions after giving up that first pick. And it starts to chip away at the credibility that they don't make a lot of mistakes. If your entry is getting profoundly weaker against opponents week over week, then that's something that you need to fix immediately. It gives your opponent way too much time and room, knowing that they've already got an advantage on you with so much of the timer left.
Slow play here from DG. They're trying to get control of Cash, and this is a very different setup from SSG. They didn't hold Cash, they're holding Construction. And that's why they reinforced the way that they did. Oh, what a flick from Thinking Nate, and he'll get out of there with his life still intact. SSG not letting any frags slip into the hands of Disrupt as we hit the last minute of this round.
And Disrupt is hanging tough. I mean, it's still 4v4. These rounds have been back and forth, and even if SSG manages to take the round here, you know that DG is going to be coming back swinging. They've got construction control, but they need to narrow down where the remaining members of Spacestation are. And Spacestation looms in the shadows, just as patient as ever, waiting for somebody to commit a mistake. This is going to be the tough part. You've lost a serious amount of your destructive capabilities because you don't have a Zofia. And everybody from DG falls, leaving just Retro up in a 1v4. Fultz, 3 huge kills. He's not going to get the ace, but it doesn't really matter. All SSG needs to do is get the last remaining member of Disrupt. Diffuser in hands, and you know what? Why not give somebody to Retro? It's his very first kill. It's a pity kill, we'll call it that, because with only a second left, Retro has nowhere to go but down. And there you have it. Rampy finishes it off. Back and forth we go. No team in this matchup has won 2 rounds in a row. That trend continues now as SSG takes it.
Okay. So, first of all, I want to reiterate that I absolutely adore the setup we just saw from SSG. It's not a cash hold, it's a construction hold, which is something that you don't see very well. You don't see. Usually on Gym Bedroom, you'll see an extension into Cash. The defense will try to delay as much as they can by Cash. They will fall back through Construction, but the defenders will not hold Construction. In that round, Space Station reinforced by the Cash side, not the actual Cash room itself, but Raptor's wall, to try and distract and absorb utility and slow down the take from the Cash side. That is obviously going to happen. And then they peeled off almost immediately into Construction and held it there using just one shield. Great setup from Space Station. It's a good way to circumvent the expectations of your opponent, and it worked. Yeah, it worked very well for them.
Well, back downstairs we go. Same rotation that we saw from Disrupt on defense. It's almost frightening how much of a mirror matchup this has been so far. SSG obviously really liked their last defense here, and why not? If you recall, it was a flawless round to start their defensive half on this map. Most of the action occurred upstairs in Cash and CCTV, and boy, oh boy, what a sight to behold that was for SSG fans. And frankly, it was a sight to behold for anybody who's a fan of good competitive Rainbow Six, because there wasn't a lot of mistakes committed from DG other than just a relatively ineffective entry, which has been the case for DG so far throughout this attack. They have forfeited the opening pick in all 3 rounds right now on attack, and yet they still come away with a round. So not all hope is lost, but I don't know what you're going to change up for DG, because you fumbled it quite hard and had some significant stumbles against this offsite presence of Space Station. And it looked like Fultz was going to be in a bit of action to begin with now, as he's very freely roaming downstairs, but Shuttle peels off because Disrupt are not keen to get into early engagements. You do not want to lose a piece of utility with over 2 minutes left.
Yeah, if I were a Disrupt shot caller right now, I would certainly be focusing them more on the site and less on clearing the anchors, given how poorly it went for the anchor clear last time, as you mentioned. Disrupt need to just hit direct if they can, and it looks like that's going to be the call, as they're not hunting the roamers to the other side of the map. They're just opening up as much as they can. That'll give them direct access to the site. Dirt tunnels opened up. I think it was soft. It could have just been, you know, opened up with a breach charge, but whatever, job's done, exothermic used. The drop down in kitchen is being opened up. The Selma's not being countered, no impact tricking going on here. Even with Habana Band, they're not going to even bring the impacts to make it an option. What is certainly an option for the defense is 4 C4s and 3 gas canisters to deny the kitchen drop plant from Disrupt in the dying seconds of this round.
There's another opening pick for the defense, and Mark is down for the count, though it certainly seems like the Zofia might have had more of an impact on this round than in the previous one, because it was much earlier on that DG found themselves at a disadvantage. Retro manages to take a chunk of flesh off of Fultz as the Valkyrie finds their way back down below, and Retro's inside a dirt tunnel, but one of those 4C4s gets put to great use as quite a toss from Bosco, taking Retro out of dirt tunnel. Now, he's not the one with Diffuser. If SSG thinks so, they're going to be dead wrong. Now, taking up his place is Iconic, as he will try to avenge his teammate from inside a dirt tunnel. It's the ace of J90 that has the case, so at some point, he's going to need to get it down. But everybody from DG is falling. A flawless round is very much on the board for SSG here, as they've been absolutely perfect on this bomb site. And yet again, 2 flawless rounds on the same damn bomb site. SSG finds themselves on match point.
All right, so first of all, I'm happy that Disrupt decided to try a different strategy other than the clear, but what they did before they adjusted their strategy was they started a full clear execute. Why? Are they trying to distract SSG? And if they're trying to distract SSG, shouldn't they be pulling a fast one? So if you're gonna fake out a full clear, then shouldn't you be adjusting for the direct hit to site almost immediately? That would be the answer, right? But no, it took Disrupt almost the entire round to adjust from their start of a full clear to a direct hit on the site, and they were executing with barely seconds on the clock. Why? What is happening? The dirt tunnel is soft. Open it up and hit direct. Why are you even pretending you want to clear upstairs? A very confusing call there from Disrupt in terms of how they decided to execute. I'm not sure exactly what was going through their heads. They must have had some kind of plan. I think they were trying to fake out, but it was just too damn slow. And now SSG find themselves on match point.
Back upstairs to cache CCTV, the one bomb site that should inspire some hope here for Disrupt and their fans, because it was the one bomb site that DG won. But you even called it. It wasn't necessarily a DG victory. It was more of an SSG loss. So the question is, will DG have that same success? There's a couple things that worked. Number one, they pushed engagements one by one that ended up working out in their favor. In particular, on the breach and inside a garage, once they had that control, SSG just essentially crumbled, and then SSG were forced into the back of cache and top of red. And well, they couldn't fight their way out of that. You know how hard it is to try and be aggressive from those spots, especially at the top of red. There's really nowhere for you to go except for that single doorway. So SSG is going to change some things up. The recently nerfed Echo, and by recently I mean it was still a couple months ago, but we haven't seen a lot of comp play since his changes came into effect. The recently nerfed Echo is going to be on the board. Now, Luke is still looking for his very first kill. If he doesn't get it, no problem, because there's utility that he can put to good use, especially with aiding Bosco inside of Catwalk and Garage.
To my knowledge, this is Luke's first time on a big stage, you know, in a serious environment like this. So it's understandable that there's going to be a little bit of shakes. And I'm sure his team is reassuring him, listen, man, it's not on you to have all the frags right now. And I think Luke is leaning into that with an Echo pick. He's certainly just going to go, you know what? Can't get a kill? I will just help my team. And that is a great way to do so on defense. Echo is excellent at active droning for his teammates and giving picks to the rest of his team. So I think this is a good pick here from Luke. I think this is the right decision given the current set of circumstances.
Some ADS juggling going down from Bosco there, as DG didn't really have to sweat too much to get inside of construction, and they'll hold this down, and yet again SSG gets this opening pick. So things starting off quite well for Spacestation and the astronauts on this team. Down goes Iconic. He was the first to fall on this same bomb site before. Exothermic charge prepped and ready, but an impact grenade from Luke in the spot inside a cache will do its job quite nicely, warding an easier entry from Retro. Now, because they were able to open up the breach, you're gonna have to rely on Ace's Selmas instead, and guess what? He's got a lot of them to chuck at the wall. Last impact grenade goes out, and it's gonna stop that wall from opening up, but J90, he's got some insurance, some added insult to injury there. It'll allow SSG to not play it anywhere near as freely and allow DG a greater line of sight into the bomb.
That Yokai drone being in the corner is going to be a serious thorn in the side of DG as they execute through construction. Even though you've got the wall open, if full information is being relayed, then, I mean, SSG are in a really good spot, especially with only 27 seconds left to execute. Space Station just need to wait here. Last time, they threw this dub away, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case this time, as Space Station have managed to dwindle this clock down to the dying seconds. What will Disrupt do? Looks like it's going to be a rush in. Nobody's actually watching the construction door. Retro has control of cash now, but the retake from SSG is looking firm, and it's going to be GG's in the chat. Space Station will take this match, and Disrupt's chances are completely gone.
No Canadian, no problem. This all-new American lineup of Space Station makes a hell of a debut here in the second year of the NA League, and was led in large part by the efforts of the entire team. I don't think anybody particularly stood out to me. Bosco had some really great plays, as did Rampy, as did Thinking Nade. And I mean, Luke, you make your debut